Hey, what's up, YouTube? Welcome back to the third part of my story. And so, when I left off, I had just got a divorce and I moved into a camper on my property where, I had built my business and so I was living there. But since about 2013, I was dealing with stomach issues and the doctors could not figure out what the issue was. And so, every couple months, I would end up in the hospital with severe cramping, throwing up nonstop for days, and they ran all these tests and everything came back normal, and they were really at a loss for what it was. And so after a couple years, they finally diagnosed me with diverticulitis, which is a stomach condition, and it's onset by not taking care of your body. And so I like Coca Cola. I drink probably 3 cans a day. And so, I definitely don't take care of my body like I should, which I'm going to start because even as I record this video for the last few days, I've been dealing with a diverticulitis episode. I've been in bed, just in pain, and it's not been fun. But I wanted to get this video out to make sure I stay on pace and make sure everybody kind of gets the third part of the story. And so, at the time I got divorced, I was still smoking weed. I was drinking alcohol and smoking cigarettes. And so I wasn't taking care of my body the way that I should. And, to kind of compound the diverticulitis, I had what has been diagnosed as cannabinoid hypermesia syndrome. And so this is a separate issue that is connected through smoking weed, and it caused inflammation of the diverticulitis. So it was a double whammy, and it wasn't until I really gave up weed, which I'll get to in a little bit, that it went away. But I was dealing with this sickness like every month. I would say I would get in these bouts of throwing up and cramping, severe cramping, and end up in the hospital. And so it was a lot. To kind of take the turn of my life story here. So as I was running my laser tag business, I was able to meet a lot of awesome people. One of the people that I met, his name is Brian Knight, and he's the one of the owners of Pragmatic Works, and they are a Microsoft training company, and so they train on Microsoft products. And I told him a little bit about my life story and that I was a teacher, and that life just didn't pan out the way that I expected it to. I had an engineering degree, and so he gave me the opportunity. He said, hey, why don't you take a chance? Why don't you come work for me? We teach people, but we teach adults. You don't have to teach children anymore. And the compensation is going to be rewarding. Just give it a chance. And so I took the chance. I had nothing to lose at this point. I was kind of at the bottom. And so I was hired on by Pragmatic Works, and I really enjoyed what I did. I loved teaching people. I loved learning new things. And so I spent the first probably 9 months learning all the new technologies, Power BI, Power Automate, the entire Power Platform, understanding DAX, reading books, and just really diving in. I wanted to become an expert. Well, I progressed really quickly into through the company. I even developed some training material, some new training material for them, and I really, really loved working at Pragmatic Works. It was one of the highlights of my life. I'll always remember it. The management staff, the owners, Brian and his brother Devin, are amazing people. I would have to drive to the office every day from where I lived, and so it was about an hour or so drive. And then I was dealing with custody issues where I had to pick up my kids by a certain time. Sometimes I would be in trainings and I wouldn't be able to get my kids, and it was a lot to manage. And so after about a year and a half or so, I really needed to be able to work remotely. I needed to be able to work from the house so that way I could go get my kids as needed. And so I talked with them, and it was just something that they really wanted people in the office for the time being. And I understood that. I had no hard feelings. And so we parted ways. And on good terms, and it was, I still have contact with them. They're great people. I have nothing bad to say about them. They are really awesome. But that's when I transitioned into working for the current company that I work for, SME Solutions Group, which is now Blue Mantis. And so I work as a data architect now. And so instead of training people, I actually now build solutions. I build reports. I do the data engineering in the background when I need to. And so I transition into this role, but I'm able to work from home, which is truly a blessing, to be able, especially with my custody schedule and everything that I have to deal with on that end. Working from home has been, a life changer for me. And so I really appreciate the opportunity to work from the house. And so, from there, I started working remotely. I was able to, purchase a house. So I was no longer living in a camper. I was living in a house, and I decided that, I felt like I didn't want to ever get married again. Honestly, after what I dealt with the first one, but God had other plans for me, and so I actually signed up for eHarmony, and so I'm a big believer in math. I feel like statistics really guide my path, and so the fact that they based the matching off of statistics, I was like, hey, I like that model rather than just meeting random people and hoping it works out. So I filled out it was probably, I don't know, 400 question survey on eHarmony, and I had my distance set at like 50 miles, and everybody came back at like 65, 70%. I'm like, damn, that's not really high. Like, I expected, 85, 90%, something like that. Well, so I expanded my distance, so you can expand the distance in the website to 200 miles, right? Pretty drastic change. And I found someone that I matched. I think it was like 87%. And I was like, man, that's a great percentage. 87, like that means we have a lot of things in common, and I know we were, really far apart, but let's take a shot. And so I ended up messaging her, and we got to talking for a couple months over the phone, and I really wanted to make sure before I introduced my children to anybody that this is somebody that I was going to be with for a while. So it was probably 5 or 6 months that we dated before my kids or her kids were even introduced, and it is my current wife now. Spoiler alert. So I lived in Keystone. She lived in Clearmont. So it was probably about a 2-hour drive between our houses. And so, with me having the business and wanting to travel to go out and things like that, it was kind of difficult at first. And so, eventually I just got to the point where I needed to find someone to run my business. I needed someone to take over so that I could go do what I wanted to do and not be stuck or tied down to the business. She would come up, spend time with me up at the business, and but it was not conducive. So we had to figure something out. And so after I don't know, about a year and a half, we started trying to make plans to how we were going to make this work, because it was a lot traveling back and forth. And so, at this point, she had really shown me, what a Christian woman is. And she had really shown me what focusing on Christ can do for your life. And once again, I had a head knowledge of who God was, who Jesus was, but I wasn't really following him. She was kind of that Kickstarter for me. That she really was. She dealt with her stuff through her divorce, which she'll talk about. But that's what brought her to her point in her faith, where she was strong in her faith, and I really admired that. And so, I felt like this is a person I could spend the rest of my life with. So I decided to ask her to marry me. She said yes, and so we decided to start planning our life, how we were going to work this out. Well, anyone who's ever dealt with divorce with children, they have a rule. Well, in Florida, they have a rule. You can't move more than 50 miles from your place of divorce. So my house in Stark, where I got divorced, I couldn't move more than 50 miles without the consent of my ex-wife. So she had the same rule. She's got 3 boys. And so in order for us to find a spot kind of in the middle, one of us was going to have to break over that 50 miles. So, I was able to make that happen through the court system, and I was able to move past that 50-mile mark. We're at 77 miles, so just a little bit over that mark, but she's as far north as she can come. And so we met here in Wildwood in Florida, and so that's kind of the middle point for us. And while we still deal with transporting back and forth to the different schools, it's about an hour and a half one way for each of us when we have to take our kids to school. It's still a struggle, but we believe that God's going to make a way for that. But it's really been a blessing, because the church that we go to is literally right across the street. And so we go to Encounter Church, and this is where I was able to really grow in my faith. And so we started getting connected into life groups. Once again, I grew up in the church. So we went to church on Wednesdays and Sunday mornings and Sunday nights. And I was heavily involved with the church as a young kid. But I didn't have that personal relationship. But I knew it was important to get plugged in, and especially with my wife and I, getting married, and we wanted to make sure our children found a church where they could grow up in. And so we started, going to church regularly, and making sure it was a priority. And, while I was there, we had a revival, and I rededicated myself to Christ, and I really, just kind of gave it all to God. I was still dealing with, I wasn't drinking as much, but I was still dealing with smoking weed, and it was one of those things where, like, I felt like that was who I was. I was, if I didn't smoke, then I wasn't the person I knew myself to be. Well, I came to the realization through Christ that I didn't need that it wasn't who I was. I was covering up a lot of trauma, a lot of things that happened to me as a kid, and so I had to deal with a lot of issues. I had to forgive the people that hurt me as a child. I had to give up the things that I thought were important in my life to really focus in on Christ. And so I asked God, I said, I need you to take this from me. Like, I need you to remove the want and the need to smoke weed out of my life, because I don't have the ability to do it myself. I've been smoking for so long, like I identified it. That's who I was. And so he just took it, man. Like, I don't know how to explain it. He took it out of my life, and since then I haven't had another episode of the cannabinoid hypermesia syndrome, which is connected it inflames the diverticulitis, and so I'm thankful for that. But this episode of diverticulitis that I'm currently dealing with right now, just reminded me how far I came. Like, I would deal with this pain every month, sometimes multiple times a month, and it was, the weed was triggering it. In this case, it's probably all the soda that I drink, which I'm going to start drinking more water and trying to eat more healthy, because it's not fun. But God has given me an opportunity to just change my life and to live my life according to what His plans and purposes are. And so I'm grateful that I got a second chance to live my life. I'm able to work remotely. I'm able to support my family. I'm able to just even this YouTube channel is a blessing to the fact that I'm able to reach people around the world and to help them with their journey, that might be in the same place or even worse position than I was in, and help them get that Microsoft certification so that they can transform their lives. Like, it's been such a blessing to have that certification and to get a job and work as a Power BI data analyst is really changed my life. But more so, giving my life fully to Christ and allowing Him to take over and really direct my life has been the best blessing, other than my wife. I feel truly blessed for the opportunity to share this with you, and I just thank you for joining me, and I pray that you find Christ if you haven't already, and just understand that He's great. He's good, and He wants the best for your life. And I just pray that you're blessed. Have a great day.